Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you do not miss any video lesson from RAU'S IAS.
Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, where we take important articles from the Hindu. The articles have appeared in the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper. The articles for the discussion are mentioned on your screen.
The first article that has appeared in the Hindu on page number 11 talks about the role of governor. The article says that should there be any role of chief minister in the appointment of governors or not. Now UPSC under the GS2 section highlights the areas where the questions related to governor can be asked with regard to federal structure and the functions and responsibilities of the union and the state. And such a question was also seen previously with regard to governor in 2018 and 2016 respectively, and thus this area becomes important for us. Now governor has been in the news for past some time due to issues related to Kerala Assembly, and prior to that with the involvement of governor in the Punjab Assembly. So in this article we'll cover the different facets of governor, where we will try to understand what is the historical underpinning and constitutional provision regarding the governor. What is the importance of governor in a parliamentary setup? What is the analysis of the governor? What are the controversies that are related to governor, whether it is related to appointment or that related to removal, which also constitute as the core issues, and the instances of the arbitrary exercise of power from the very beginning of, that is, from Indian independence. At the last, we'll also try to understand what are the way forward that have been suggested by various commissions and committees, and try to understand how the role of governor can be well envisaged such that the federal setup of the country is not disturbed and is utilized effectively. The first point of discussion will be the constitutional status of the governor. Now for this, we'll look at the Bare Act and try to understand the constitutional position of the governor. Under the Constitution, Article 153 provides for the governor of states, and it says that there shall be a governor for each state. It also states that nothing in this article shall prevent the appointment of the same person as governor for two or more states. Now, this provision was included after the 7th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1956, wherein there was reorganization of state at the national level. Further, to understand the position of governor, we need to understand Article 154 also. Now, governor has a very predominant constitutional position, and Article 154 explains the executive power of the state. It says the executive power of the state shall be vested in the governor and shall be exercised by him directly or through the officers that are subordinate to him. It further says that nothing in this article shall be deemed to transfer or govern any function conferred by any existing law or any other authority. And at the same time, it prevents the legislature of the state and even the parliament from conferring by law functions on any authority that is subordinate to governor. This highlights the importance of governor as a part of state executive. Now, when we have seen the constitutional status of the governor, we'll try to understand the importance of governor in the Indian constitutional setup. Now we know that India follows a parliamentary system of government, and this system is even replicated at the state level. Thus, it is important that we have a post of governor, because in the parliamentary setup there is a feature of nominal head and the real head, or what we can also know as de jure executive and de facto executive. Here it is important to understand that the nominal head at the center is president, while the nominal head at the state level is governor. On the other hand, the real head at the center is prime minister, and the real head at the state level is chief minister. To explain further, the importance of governor lies with the intricacies of the parliamentary setup. Now, parliamentary setup by nature is unstable, and hence a fixed term is needed for the purpose of continuity in the administration. Secondly, what is needed is a person who is above the party politics. That means he or she is non-partisan and apolitical in nature. as the parliamentary system itself is based on the idea of party politics. Supreme Court in its various judgments has also highlighted the importance of the office of governor, and such a case was that of Shamsher Singh case versus the state of Punjab, where it clarified that there is no difference in the position of president and that of governor, and concluded that both the posts are constitutional in nature and they serve as the constitutional heads at their respective level. Further, the importance of the office of governor is also highlighted by the statements of Sarkaria Commission. Now, Sarkaria Commission we will discuss in detail later in our discussion. But the Sarkaria Commission was set up to understand the role of governor. In the Indian federal setup, the governor has dual responsibility beside being the nominal head. He is also the link between the union and the state. And it was in this regard that Sarkaria Commission concluded that governor acts as a linchpin. Further, the Sarkaria Commission concluded that India follows a model of what we today know as cooperative federalism, and thus the role of governor becomes even more important. And lastly, to understand the importance of governor, we can understand it with the integrated setup of the Indian Federation. Unlike the US federal setup, the government in India are integrated, that is, the center and the state government are not independent of each other, rather, they are interlocked in their nature. And for the system to function smoothly, the position of governor holds importance. Now, moving to the next part of our discussion, it deals with basically the analysis or the initial analysis that have been done by the scholars and the political scientists. Now, scholars believe that the institution of governor was very critical at the time of Indian independence and while the formation of Indian constitution, because this was the time when India was challenged with the issues and the fear of partition along with secessionist movement that were also happening at the same time. Thus, the constitutional makers felt the importance that there should be an agency which was needed to keep the watch on the local development, and hence the position of governor was there. Political scientists believe that the governor is like eyes and ears of the union at the state level, and also believe that governor is like the long arm of the union with the iron fist in the velvet gloves. This has been the initial analysis by the political scientists and scholars. By understanding the constitutional provisions and the nature of working of governor in the initial years. The detailed guidelines regarding the governor was a matter of discussion among the members of Constituent Assembly. While at the one hand, Sardar Hukum Singh had argued in the favor of providing a panel of names elected by the state legislature from which the president will choose. And this idea was also supported by A. Krishnaswamy Iyer, which means the governor should be appointed by the president. Similarly, G. Durgabai and J. L. Nehru was in favor of an appointment mechanism to place the governor above the party politics and above faction and not subject him to the party affairs. It was in this regard that here it was accepted governor must not be the one who is not acceptable to the government of the state and must not be from the political background in the state. After the much deliberation and discussion, it was agreed that the role of governor was crucial, as we have already seen in our discussion, and it was also decided to bestow the governor with some of the discretionary powers which will be important for slowly tying collage of India as a single union comprising of provinces, princely states and commissioner provinces. Thus, it was envisaged that governor must be in the direct relation with the center to keep the center informed and updated about the vociferous tendencies which were emerging in the state or the provinces, because India was very nascent at that point of time. Now, governor, starting from the very independence, have been in the mire of controversy, and this has been attached to the discretionary powers that have been provided under the constitution to the governor. The discretionary powers are a source of contention between the state and the center, where state allege that these discretionary powers distort the federal setup of India. The discretionary powers or the provisions that impact the position of the state are reservation of bill by the governor for the for the consideration of precedent under Article 200. Secondly, the appointment of Chief Minister of the state under Article 164 Clause 1, including inviting the leader of the single largest party in case of a hung verdict to prove majority on the floor of the House, sometimes become contentious. We'll also see the instances where this power have been misutilized in the recent time and also tracking right it from the very beginning in our further course of discussion. Further, the dismissal of ministry or the chief minister and other minister, it is mentioned that they shall hold the office during the pleasure of the governor under Article 164. This also brings in point of contention where the state governments are sometimes dismissed arbitrarily. Going further, Article 356 also provides for the governor's report, under which, in the case of failure of constitutional machinery in state, the precedent rule or the state emergency can be imposed. This is again a point of contention between the state and the central government, which invites the critical role of governor. Further, the governor has also responsibility for certain regions such as tribal areas in Assam and responsibilities placed of governor under Article 371A, C and H. These discretionary powers by the governor and their usage leave certain space for its misutilization, which we'll see how historically has been misused by the governors across different states and is also seen in the present era. Political scientists believe that the ambiguity in the constitution provides a huge space for the governors to act discretionary under the provisions of Article 163, which leaves the scopes open for governor to exercise power in a discretionary manner. Now, furthering our discussion, we'll see some of the arbitrary instances where the governor has utilized its power going against the federal structure of the constitution. The first example in this regard can be taken from the 1952 itself during the prime ministership of Nehru. In 1952, the Tamil Nadu governor at that time, T. Prakasam, instead of inviting communists who had more seats, invited C. Rajagopalachari of the Indian National Congress to form the government. The next case was seen in regard to Kerala during 1956, wherein the Kerala government was thrown out without any valid reasons. In 1984 again, the Andhra Pradesh governor dismissed the government of the NTR when he was abroad for the medical treatment. Again in 1988, Governor Ramesh Bhandari dissolved the Kalyan Singh government and appointed Jagdambika Paul as the CM without giving opportunity to the Kalyan Singh to prove his majority on the floor of the House. Now the instance of 1988 is of particular importance because as per the provisions of the constitution, judiciary cannot intervene in the procedure of the legislative. However, in this case, judiciary intervened and directed a composite floor test where both the parties were required to prove the majority on the same day on the floor of the House, and where Jagdambika Pal failed to prove his majority. The problem of misuse of power has also been seen in the 21st century, and such an instance was seen in the year 2016 in the state of Uttarakhand. The Uttarakhand governor first gave the time to prove majority, but dissolved assembly one day before the actual floor test took place based on the ground of sting operation that were released by the media, and concluded that there was a host of horse trading happening and considered it as its moral duty to prevent it. Again in 2016, a case was seen in Arunachal Pradesh. This case is also particularly important because the Nabam Rabia case guidelines were laid down after it, which included that the satisfaction of the governor is open to judicial review. The process continued in 2017, wherein Goa and Manipur governors did not invite the largest party to form the government. Again in the year 2018, Karnataka governor did exactly opposite, that is, for the formation of government, the majority party was not invited. In 2019, the Maharashtra governor had Devendra Fadnavis sworn in as the chief minister amid a hung verdict only for his government to fall in the next 80 hours. And recently, the Punjab governor in September refused to allow a special session of the assembly for a vote of confidence in the AAP government. The governor of Kerala recently has been in news with his active involvement in day-to-day administration and call for sacking of ministers and vice-chancellors of the state universities. This had made the role and duties of the states bit controversial, and that particularly of the governor. Governor had traditionally played a non-partisan and non-active role in Indian politics. It is in this regard that DMK leader has urged to support a proposal addressed to the President of India to remove the governor of Tamil Nadu. Similar kind of demands have been resonated by the governments of Kerala, Punjab, who have expressed disagreement with the government on the issue. By analyzing the above cases, we can understand a clear distinction here that the party which is in power in the union or controls the union repeats the action to suit its political objective at the state level. Now that we have seen what are the issues and the places where governor power has been used arbitrarily, we'll try to analyze what is the core problem. If we can break down the issue of position, there are two basic important places where governors and their positions need to be updated in the first place. The issues are resonating with the issue of appointment and that of removal of governor. We'll first take up the issue of removal of governor. Now, the governor, as per the provisions of the constitution, serves under the pleasure of the president. And if this pleasure is withdrawn before the completion of the 5-year term, the governor has to step down. But this pleasure has a deeper meaning. Though governor is working on the pleasure of president, it is invariably that governor is working on the pleasure of the central government, that is the council of ministers, which is headed by the prime minister itself. As the president works on the aid and advice of prime minister and the council of ministers, in effect the governor can be appointed and removed by central government. And this has even been testified by the change of government at the central level, wherein the governors are then appointed, removed or transferred by the central government. Thus, the governor works as per the demands, the guidelines and the wishes of the central government, which is the council of ministers and the prime minister, and the pleasure of president has a deeper connotation. Lastly, the state government has no role in playing the removal of governor. There is no provision for impeachment of governor under the constitution, though the governor duties and responsibilities lie within a particular state. So this area becomes contentious between the center and the state, as Indian constitution is silent on the removal of governor. As we have already seen during the removal process that the governors are appointed by the central government. But the appointment procedure is not an issue. The issue here is that of qualification. The constitution hardly mentions any qualification for the governor. This issue was even raised at the time of independence and at the debates of the Constitutional Assembly, where Pandit Bhargava asked for specific qualifications for the appointment of governor at the state level, such that the office of governor cannot be misused. However, Prime Minister Nehru at that time believed in healthy conventions, which included conventions like eminent person who is from the same state, and also no active political or administrative background will serve the purpose. However, if we see the actual system today and even at the time of independence, the actual system represents today at best as a spoiled system. Now, the post of governor has become a medium of rehabilitation of the rejected politicians, wherein the politicians who are losing elections have been made governors of the state, and these governors or politicians have been utilized to undermine the position of the chief minister, who is duly elected by the people of that state. Beside that, the position has been also been filled by the ex-bureaucrat and the former judges who have been appointed without even serving the cooling off period. This highlights the need for politically neutral governor, and which has been resonated by various commissions like Sarkaria Commission, National Commission on the Review of Working of Constitution, and the Punchi Commission. The basic connotation among the various commissions has been that neutrality of governor is best displayed when he uses his discretionary powers as per the constitution and not as per the demands or the guidelines laid down by the central government. In this regard, the case which is of particular importance is the Supreme Court judgment that was made under the BP Singhal versus Union of India case 2010, wherein the primary objective by the Supreme Court was highlighted as the governor's dual role. The 5 judges bench of Supreme Court on the removal of governor mentioned about the dual role as an agent of the center and as a head of the state. Supreme Court in the same case held that governor is neither an employee of the union government nor is an agent of party in power. It is not required to act under the dictates of any political party. Secondly, Supreme Court stated that there may be instances where there can be conflict between the center and the state government, and governor has to maintain neutrality to protect the constitutional status of the position. Supreme Court in the same case upheld that there is no limitation or restrictions on the pleasure doctrine. That is, it upheld that president can remove the governor from the office at any point of time without assigning any reason and without giving any opportunity to show cause. However, it said that power to remove cannot be exercised in an arbitrary and unreasonable manner. It said that power is to be utilized only in rare and exceptional circumstances. The difference in ideologies and policies of the union government and the governor should not be a criteria for the removal of governor from its office. Now that we have seen the core issues in the working of the governor or with the office of governor with regard to the appointment, removal and the guidelines as laid down under the BP single case, we need to understand what can be the way forward to improve the efficacy and protect the constitutional status of the office of governor. In this regard, central and the state government had set up various commissions to better the coordination between the center and the state. And first commission in this regard is the Punchi Commission. Punchi Commission talks about that there should be clear guidelines for the appointment of chief minister, so there can be some sort of regulation over the discretionary powers of the governor. It said that a pre-poll alliance must be treated as a single party. The Punchi Commission has also given the order of precedence that has to be followed in case of hung assembly. It says the first preference should be given to the group who is the largest pre-poll alliance and is commanding the largest number in the assembly. The second position is to be given to the single largest party with support of others. The third in the order of precedence should be post-electoral coalition with all parties joining the government. And fourth in this regard should be the post-electoral alliance with some parties joining the government and the remaining including the independents supporting from outside. Another commission that has been set up for this regard has been the Sarkaria Commission. The Sarkaria Commission has recommended that governors should not be sacked before the completion of their 5-year tenure. Only on the rare and very serious compelling circumstances, the governor can be sacked before the 5-year term. It also recommended that there should be inclusion of a provision related to the impeachment in Indian Constitution in order to impeach the governor by the assembly. It also recommended, like other commissions, that the appointment of the governor should be after the consultation with the chief minister of the state concerned. However, none of these have been implemented. There are also other committees which have been set up in this regard, and the first Administrative Reform Commission, Rajamannar Committee, which has been set up by the Tamil Nadu government, and also a committee under the Presidential Secretariat was set up to recommend measures to improve the coordination. All these committees unilaterally suggested that the chief minister of the concerned state should be consulted before the appointment of governor. The National Review on the Working of Indian Constitution recommended that the governor should be appointed after due consideration and deliberation by a committee which includes Prime Minister, Home Minister, Speaker of Lok Sabha and the Chief Minister of the state concerned. Only when there is an agreement over the name of governor, such a governor should be appointed. So, taking these considerations in our mind, we can reach up to the conclusion that there is a need to follow recommendation of the Sarkaria, Punchi Commission and various other commissions that have been established. The role of the governor that was envisaged pre-independence and in the initial year of independence have served their purpose. After more than 70 years of independence, the condition and the political structure of the country has changed, and this needs to be reflected. Thus, there is a need to revisit the roles, functions, discretionary powers that have been provided to governor in the present circumstances. such that the constitutional dignity of the office of governor can be maintained. Now, the next article has featured on page 17 of the Hindu and basically talks about the midterm elections which are about to happen in United States of America. Now, this topic becomes important for us because in the GS2 syllabus, comparison of Indian constitutional scheme with that of other countries have been explicitly mentioned. And in the year 2022 only, a question regarding the comparison of constitution was asked, in which the procedures through which the presidents of India and France are elected was asked about. Moving on with our discussion, the pictographic shown represents the current situation or the present scenario of the US Congress. As we can see, the Democrats who are in power have 222 seats in the House of Representatives, and Republicans on the other hand have 213 seats. Both the Republicans and Democrats have 50-50 seats in the Senate. Now, midterm elections are being conducted in the United States for the 35 seats of the Senate and for all the seats of House of Representatives. The election will be contested mainly between two political parties, that is the Republican and the Democrats, and this midterm election will give an opportunity to voters to express their views on Joe Biden's presidency and the current direction of the country. It will also give the leaders an opportunity to make necessary course correction so as to adapt to the changing mood of the nation. Now, this midterm election vote is particularly important for the Joe Biden administration. The result will though not affect the presidentship of Joe Biden, but if Republican Party is having a majority of more than 50% in either house, it will make it difficult for the President Joe Biden to carry on with his legislative agenda such as abortion laws. A party needs 51 seats to control the Senate, and the Democrats currently control the Senate, though having equal number of seats with the Republicans, that is 50-50, but it is the tie-breaking vote of Vice President Kamala Harris that gives edge to the Democrats. Now we'll try to understand when and why is the midterm election conducted in the United States of America. Unlike India, which is a multi-party democracy, United States follow a two-party system which contest to control the US Congress. Members of both Senate and the House of Representatives have different terms based on which elections are conducted. As we have seen in the pictographic only, the House of Representatives have total of 435 members, on which the Democrats presently have an advantage over 222 seats. The members of House of Representatives are elected for a term of 2 years, whereas the Senate, which has 100 members, have a term of 6 years. Since the members of House of Representatives have 2-year term, midterm elections are held every 2 years after presidential elections and 2 years prior to the next presidential election. This gives opportunity to the party in power to make necessary course correction. For example, the presidential elections were conducted in 2020, where Joe Biden became the president as Democratic Party won the election. So now in 2022 again, the midterm elections are being conducted prior to the November 2024 election for the president. In the midterm elections, we have seen that all 435 seats of the House of Representatives are contested and 1/3 of the seats in the Senate are also being contested. Further, as a part of midterm election only, 36 states across the country will also elect their governors. Now, as it has been mentioned, the comparison of Indian constitution scheme with that of world, we'll try to understand, is there any provision of midterm elections in India? Indian Parliament comprises of the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and the President as a part of it. Members of Lok Sabha are elected directly by the people in 530 territorial constituencies, whereas those of Rajya Sabha are elected indirectly by the members of Legislative Assembly of the state in accordance with the system of proportional representation and by the means of single transferable vote. So, as regard with the Indian parliamentary setup and convention, midterm elections are not held in India as members of Lok Sabha are elected for a period of 5 years and the Council of Ministers remains collectively responsible to the lower house, that is the Lok Sabha. Midterm polls or early polls will only be held in one condition: if the government of the day has lost the majority in the Lok Sabha and the Prime Minister has resigned and called for another general election. In case a seat becomes vacant due to death, disqualification or resignation of members of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, then a by-poll is conducted for the remainder of the term. So we have seen that there is no provision of midterm elections in India when compared to that of United States of America. But this article has another connotation also. We need to understand why these midterm elections are a significant global affair. We'll try to understand various points or various nuances under this. The first important provision is the control of the Congress. The midterm elections can play a crucial role in deciding that who will control the Congress, the state legislature and the governor offices, as 36 states will also elect their governor. In case the Democrats lose their narrow majority, the next 2 years will be extremely difficult for the Joe Biden government, as the president will face many hurdles in getting the bill passed. Joe Biden is already under the poor rating radar due to his push for new laws on climate change, gun control, infrastructure, child poverty policies have been viewed differently by the people of America. Further, there have been an issue regarding codifying Roe Wade on abortion rights. Republicans have promised for the new laws based on US Supreme Court judgment that has overturned a decision in the Roe Wade case, as it has lifted the constitutional protection which was available on the abortion right. Republicans have promised to implement the judgment and propose a national ban on abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy. Further, Democrats at the level of USA wants to change the filibuster rule. Filibuster was a strategy that has been used in US to prolong debate and delay or prevent a vote on the bill, resolution or amendment. Another important global affair that we can see is the impact on Russian and Ukraine war. Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the policy of United States to not directly engage in the war but pressurize Russia with sanctions has not gone well with the US economy. Now US economy is witnessing highest level of inflation, and the subsequent steps by the US Fed to control the spiraling inflation is also forcing USA to move towards a recession, which can be seen in the recent layoffs by giant tech companies in US. Another area that can be affected by the midterm election is United States engagement with Iran. Despite several red flags and disappointment of its all-weather ally Israel, the US is trying to give one more try to the nuclear agreement with Iran, and that might help to ease up the energy supplies in the world. But if the Republicans get to power and Donald Trump returns in 2024, he will pull America back again from the agreement and may bring it at the brink of another war in the region. Investigations on the attack in White House may be shut down, as it has been currently being investigated by the Democrats and is expected to publish a report on what White House already knew before the attack during the Trump presidency. Other than that, the Republicans also want to look into the Biden administration immigration policies, the decision of the US to withdraw from Afghanistan, and origin of coronavirus pandemic in the China. And all these decisions will be reviewed if the Democratic Party under Joe Biden is not able to maintain its majority. The last impact that the midterm elections can have in United States and have its ramification on the global order is Trump running again for the presidency. Trump is still interested in running for the White House in 2024, and midterm results could strengthen his position in case Republicans gain an upper hand. This could mean that conservative politics, along with white supremacy, which may alter the future course of national and international politics across the globe. Thus, these midterm elections are being followed closely throughout the world, and India is no exception to it, as the result of midterm election may change India's future relations with United States, as the return of Donald Trump in the White House may improve the ties of present government as they share similar political ideologies and priorities. Now moving to the last article of the day, the article has featured on page 10 of the Hindu and talks about the role of central agencies. Recently, a special court has made some extraordinary and scathing observations about the way the Enforcement Directorate functions. Now, under the GS3 paper, UPSC has explicitly mentioned about various security forces and the agencies and about their mandate. So this area becomes important for us. Also, the case highlighted under the article points to the issue of misuse of the central agencies which the opposition laments has been utilized by the central government to stifle dissent. Also, the use of central agencies for other purposes affects the federal character of the Indian Constitution, as we will discuss the working of these central agencies and the problem or the issues associated with them. Now, a premier investigative agency is that of CBI. CBI is the premier investigative agency of India. The CBI operates under the Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pension. Now, CBI was originally set up to investigate bribery and governmental corruption in 1965 and was set up on the recommendation of the Santhanam Committee. Later, the jurisdiction of the CBI was expanded to investigate breaches of central law enforceable by the Government of India, multi-state organized crime, multi-agency and international cases. The CBI is the agency which is responsible for the international cooperation with the world. The agency has been known to investigate several economic crimes, special crimes, cases of corruption and other cases. As a matter of information, we should also know that CBI is exempted from the provisions of the Right to Information Act. The second premier agency in this regard that have been in news in the recent time is that of Enforcement Directorate. The Directorate of Enforcement is a law enforcement agency and basically is an economic intelligence agency which is responsible for enforcing economic laws and fighting economic crime in India. The prime objective of the Enforcement Directorate is the enforcement of two key acts of Government of India. These two key acts are FEMA, that is Foreign Exchange Management Act, and the Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002, or what we commonly known as PMLA. The third premier investigative agency here is National Investigation Agency. The National Investigation Agency is the primary counter-terrorist task force. This agency is empowered to deal with investigation of terror-related crimes across the state without the special permission from the states under written proclamation from Ministry of Home Affairs. This agency came into existence after enactment of National Investigation Agency Act 2008 after India witnessed deadly attacks of 26/11 in Mumbai. Now, a thing to understand and to remember here is that all the terror-related crimes and terror-related financing is dealt and investigated by a national investigative agency, and we have to be very sure that we do not mark it with the CBI if ever asked in prelims. So these were the primary and most important investigative agencies of India that have been in the news in the recent time. Now we'll try to understand what are the issues that are challenging these investigative agencies one by one. The first agency in this regard is CBI. The first issue with the working of CBI is the politicization of CBI, as Section 4 of Delhi Police Establishment Act provides that CBI must function under the superintendence of central government. And there is a growing discord between the central and the state government, wherein the state government believe that CBI is primarily used to target the opposition leaders and to stifle the dissent in the democracy. Further, the opposition ruled state have also withdrawn general consent which is given to the CBI. Now CBI has to ask for the consent on a case-to-case basis, and several states have followed this foray, as these states believe that CBI work at the behest of the central government and further the interest of central government in the state, and thus deteriorating the federal structure. Further, there have been also issues with the working of National Investigation Agency. The Unlawful Activities Prevention Amendment Act that was passed in the year of 2019 allows the NIA officer to conduct raids and seize properties that are suspected to be linked to terrorist activities without taking prior permission from the state government. This have been a bone of contention between the center and the state. Further, there have been a growing deficit between the people and the working of the NIA, and this was proved by the recent acquittal of 121 tribals by the NIA court in Sukma, Chhattisgarh, as there was imposition of Unlawful Prevention Activities Act without sufficient proof by the NIA, and these tribals were acquitted after 5 years of imprisonment, which widens the already existing trust deficit with the forces. Now moving on to the issues with the working of ED is also important. In the recent time, there have been cases where provisions of Prevention of Money Laundering Act have been used by ED against the politicians in the state that have withdrawn the general consent to the CBI. The conviction rate of the ED is extremely low, as it has only made 23 convictions out of 54,422 cases that were filed under the PMLA. Further, there have been a daily leaks to media play by the ED which damages the image of opposition leaders, and which opposition leaders again lament as an attack on the voice of dissent. Further, Section 17 of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act grants ED wide powers to enter and search suspected property without the requirement of judicial permission. And Section 45 of the same Prevention of Money Laundering Act lays down that an accused person can be granted bail if it is proved that he or she is not guilty of the offense, and satisfy the court that they will not commit any further offense. So these were the issues associated with the different investigative agencies of the country, and at the same time we'll also try to understand what can be the best possible way forward against this. Coordination between the center and the state while dealing with the criminal offense is key to narrow the trust deficit that has developed between the center and the state. There is a need to adopt collegium system mechanism for selection of directors to the investigative agencies. There have been a shortages of investigative officers among the different investigative agencies which needs to be filled, and a well-defined legal framework under which the investigative agencies will work needs to be defined. All these measures will ensure that the trust deficit between the center and the state, the ruling party and the opposition party is not widened, and the mandate and the objectives of these investigative agencies can be realized.